And we're live today with Kylene Ruth, probably one of the top 3 most influential leaders I've ever had the privilege to work with, from her no-nonsense style of leadership to her taking care of people and being able to lead across, up, down, sideways. By far one of the people that I've learned the most from and tried to emulate most often. Kylene, if you will tell us a little bit about where you're at now, what you're doing, and then we'll jump into some other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on today, Jake. It's great to talk to you. I'm in East Helena, Montana, which is like returning home for me. I grew up in Western Montana. Retired from the Air Force in the summer of 2021, and we moved back here and built a home and have made this our new community. And so in terms of what I'm doing, I'm trying to be super fan for my kiddos. I have a 6th grader that's super into music and 3-sport athlete. Both of them do scouts, so a lot of just busyness being a part of their lives and doing what they're doing. My husband's also retired, and so together we started a business and we're doing leadership development and some leadership coaching. He jokes that I'm the face and the action arm of the business, and he does all the business admin things behind the scenes that are not my favorite. So just like I could do performance reports and I put a lot of effort into doing performance reports, now that I can outsource stuff like that, I'm capitalizing on the opportunity to do that. So that has been a lot of fun. And yeah, just dabbling in not only running my business, but I'm doing some admissions things for the Air Force Academy, which is fun, and trying to like continue to breed health into my body also, right? Mind and spirit, and all the aches and pains and things that I didn't necessarily treat appropriately when I was in the service and trying to stay deployable. So that's kind of what I'm up to in a nutshell.
Awesome. That's a very busy sounding nutshell. Very, very large nutshell. So if you would, let's go back into, I'm not going to say what year it was, but let's go back into the choice to go to the academy. Walk me through that. Why'd you choose it? What was it? Walk me through that.
It was 1997 and the economy was crap. Be frank, right? I grew up in a household where my parents were self-employed and just really hardworking people. And they had both been to college, and they looked me in the eye and they went, Kylene, we think college is a great option for you, but we are not going to be able to fund it. And so you should consider working hard towards some scholarships. And my parents gave me the wise advice of not putting all my eggs in one basket. And so worked really hard in academics, worked really hard in athletics, hoping that one, both, some, all, right, would contribute to what that looked like. And I think around my sophomore year, basketball became my primary sport. I did track as well, but basketball was kind of what I put effort into year round. And around my sophomore year, I kind of sort of realized that I wanted to go play Division I basketball. That was something I was hungry to do. But I also wanted to go somewhere where I could get a really good education, because I enjoy being in the classroom and I like adding to my knowledge base. And I had been really blessed growing up in a university town that just, we had almost all my friends' parents were involved in curriculum, had degrees, like we all read books, and we were just kind of nerdy, to be frank. Like it was really cool to be smart in my public site high school. And so I wanted to be in that group. And so my uncle was in the Army as an 06 and had recently retired, but I had like memories of him being in the Army. And he was like, Kylene, did you know there's these things out there that are military academies? And believe it or not, they all have Division I athletic programs, but they also have these just awesome academic rigor environments. They kind of focus in different things. The services are all a little bit different, but most importantly, you get a guaranteed job when you graduate from college. And growing up in a college town and having neighbors that were called our neighbors were a rotable pool of defensive linemen from the local university football team. So they would a new group would move in every couple of years. And so I got to spend a lot of time around them. And I realized that it was really hard to find a job, right? And so I was like, ooh, going to a college with a scholarship, having a guaranteed job for 5 years, getting to be a part of something bigger than myself, excited about the academic rigor. And growing up as an athlete, I think the idea of wearing the same thing every day and having to follow rules and having a scripted schedule, that wasn't that far removed from what my normal life was. And I was like, okay, maybe this is it. So back in the day, we used to mail VHS tapes to schools for recruiting. How old are we? And so in addition to some other schools, I sent him out to the academy and was lucky enough to get recruited by all three of the military academies, and had the opportunity to kind of decide what do I want to do. Went out and visited everything. My uncle, who was in the Army, went, Kylene, I really think you should consider joining the Air Force because they treat their women better. And I was like, okay. And at the time, I think that was an accurate assessment, right? I think we've far leveled that playing field across the DoD now. And then I went and I visited Colorado, and it looked like Western Montana. I was like, if I'm going to be here and going through things that are really challenging and separate from my family, it would be awesome to be able to walk outside and look at the mountains and watch the sunrise and sunset and have it be familiar. And so honestly, that's what started my path to the academy. I want to play D1 basketball and I want to do academics. Now, you don't enter into a military institution and learn all the things you learn and have all the experiences you learn. You don't survive past the first like 12 to 15 months before you go, either I'm in this because I want to be in the military or I'm not. And I just fell in love with that environment and being a part of that team and everything involved with it. Even just knowing kind of my path to becoming a maintenance officer. You know, the expectation when you go there is that you should go be a pilot. Mm-hmm. And I went out on Ops Air Force between my sophomore and junior year, and I got to go visit all the different places. And I remember coming back and talking to my senior enlisted guy, my military training leader, who was a tech sergeant in my squadron. And I was like, I'm not sure I dig the pilot lifestyle. Like, it's not the same every day. It's super hodgepodge. You may or may not get to fly. You don't really get to lead anyone until you're a lieutenant colonel. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's me. And Brent Ambuel looked at me and he was like, 100% that is not you, Cadet Grove. And I was like, okay, tell me more. Well, he was a Thunderbird crew chief. And he's like, I think you need to be a maintenance officer. I know you love planes. I know you're going to want to be close to everything that's going on. But as a maintenance officer, like, you lead from day one. You get to be in these gargantuan organizations. You get to have all these amazing people around you. You get to have officer and senior enlisted mentors. I think you get to work any airframe you want. You don't get stuck, with one thing. Like, I think you should consider being a maintenance officer. And I was hooked. Like, that's all it took. And then I went and sat down with one of my captains in the behavioral science department that was a maintenance officer. And I was like, sir, what do you think about this? Do you think I should do this? And he was like, yes, 100 times you should be a maintenance officer, which was tons of fun because he ended up going really far in the Air Force. He was a captain at the time. And so I got to see him all along my career. And I used to joke with him all the time that he was a major part of how I became a maintenance officer. So yeah, left the academy, got to go to grad school full-time at Florida State, which was nice. Got to check that box. And not have to try and do all my education at night on top of learning my job. And then jumped off into maintenance officerhood at Little Rock soon after. And so that's kind of my intro into the Air Force.
So a very interesting way to get there. I find that everybody gets there in a slightly different way. And I talked to somebody the other day that was, from day one, I want to do this. It seems circumstances put people in different places, and same for you, where the circumstances I wouldn't say were less than ideal. It turned out really well, but probably not, initially. It wasn't like, in sixth grade, you were like, I'm going to join the Air Force.
No.
And it's going to happen. So what kept you past your first service commitment? What made you stick around? Was there any point in time when you thought about, I can leave now? Or was it, I'm all the way in, both feet all the time?
So I joke with people all the time. I don't have a very good rheostat. Like, I'm a on or off switch person. So if I'm doing it, like, I'm doing it. There's no, maybe a little bit. That's just not my personality. And I met my husband when I was a first lieutenant, and we kind of started dating, and that was at my first assignment. And because I was a academy grad, I had to do 5 years. So I knew I was going to have to PCS. So I wasn't going to be able to go, I do or don't like my first assignment, and therefore I'm punching and getting out. And then I also had an active duty service commitment for going to grad school for 3 years. So all that was running concurrently, but it was like riding in the background of like, no matter what, I'm taking another assignment. Well, met my husband. We started dating when I was lieutenant. I got married when I was a captain, and we were able to get my second assignment to go be together at Langley. And at that point, it was sort of pragmatic, Jake. Like, honestly, if your husband's going to be in the military, why the easiest way to always have a job is to stay in the military, right? And there's a little bit of I believe button that has to be hit there. But my husband and I had a little bit of an age gap, and so we were never competing for the same exact job. And as long as there's airplanes, there's maintenance officer jobs.
And Andy was a maintenance officer as well, yes.
Andy was a maintenance officer as well. And so I had some things that helped me out in my career, in that, like in my first assignment, I was grad school complete. I had been on a deployment, right? And so I had some of those boxes checked that when you're looking at me in the personnel system, like I would joke with my husband, my goal is to not be baggage for you. So when somebody goes, hey, I want to hire Andy for this job. Oh, he's joint spouse. But his spouse has a degree and is a deployment already and is doing well professionally. And so it started as this idea of like, well, let's just stay. And I'm having fun. And I love what I'm doing. And it keeps my family together. Why wouldn't we? And from that point forward, it really kind of opened up opportunities for us to go, okay, one, Andy and I are very different personality-wise. So, like you and I were talking about your twins a little bit. Nobody ever compared us. It only took one interaction for them to go, you guys are totally different maintenance officers. The benefit of that is at home, there was so much synergy because things he was good at were different than things that I was good at, or we could come home to each other and go, what am I not thinking of? What am I missing here? Let me try run this against you because this is not how I would talk to myself, but this person I work with is so similar to you. Let me see how this goes, right? And so I really feel like that benefit of knowing I had that like baked in support and a spouse that understood the hours that were going to be required and the off shifts and the TDYs, all of that made sense to him. And I think, quite frankly, it just made it easier to stay and do the thing. And then inherently for me, it's about impact. Like, do I feel like I'm having the impact that I'm capable of? And that's what service looks and feels like for me in the grand scheme of things. And I felt like that was ever present. And then anytime I would feel like that was lagging a little bit, God would give me a person or a job or a task or whatever it was to like rejuvenate that in a way that was really positive. And Andy and I lucked out. We were able to, do all of our assignments together. Yes, we had some deployments. Yes, at times we had to take maybe a tangent in our career where we went and did something that we would not have typically done. But it worked out for us, I think, in a positive way. Those were all formative experiences and allowed us to meet a lot of really neat people. And yeah, we were able to make it all the way through to him retiring first. And then 4 years later, I was able to retire. So I think, doing it for the love of the people, loving the mission and everything associated with, maintenance. The old school term used to be blue collar, but the phraseology that I like more is skilled workers. And I really loved being a maintenance officer because it stretched me in being around so many people that were so talented and so skilled, not only with their brains, but their hands and their emotions and their relationships. And I grew up in a university town with my parents and everybody else's parents with college degrees. And I think if I wouldn't have left home, I would have defined success as you got to have some degrees. And you got to have a full-time job. And I'm so thankful that I got to see more of the world and go, boy, man, life is nothing about degrees. And success in being a good human is nothing about how many tests that you pass. Like, are there valuable experiences in that? Yes. And is it the right path for some people? Absolutely. But just seeing and being able to be a part of all the things that I got to do as a maintenance officer, boy, it just fed my soul from a leadership perspective and just from a teammate, right? Like if I had to describe somebody asked me the other day, like, what do you do? And I've decided I don't like answering that question. Instead, I like answering, who are you? And I'm a lifetime teammate. Like that is what I love and enjoy and seek in life, is being a part of teams and getting to contribute to sort of that holistic, synergistic effect that happens when people bring their own skill sets.
That's very well put. Very, very well put. how do you think, because I don't think there's a question about it, but do you think that you are the same person that when you walked into the Air Force Academy that you are now? I would say probably not. How do you think your time in the service has changed you?
Yeah. I like to think about life as a compilation of environments you've been in, experiences you have, and education you've received. And the Air Force has contributed to me in all three of those categories. So I've always been a lover of people. I've always liked to be a part of teams. I've always been a hard worker. Integrity has always been important to me. Those things I don't think have changed. I'm the same person. What I've been able to do is take those things into different environments and create different experiences that I think have added richness to my life. So whether it's, working nights in the middle of the winter with a small team, or it's, designing and laying in the, structures and buildings and processes we need to bring on a new airframe, home station, deployed, aging fleet, brand new stuff. Like I've gotten such a broad spectrum of experiences. And I'm so thankful for it because they were all different. And of course, all the hundreds of people that you get the opportunity to connect with and touch and be touched by in the military. Just a huge part of my life and who I am now. And I would be lying to you if I tried to tell you that Andy and I don't sit around and drink coffee sometimes and just tell military stories because it's fun and we enjoy talking about it and reflecting on and thinking about things that we haven't thought of in a while.
So we were talking before, and you were mentioning actually when you were talking about becoming a maintenance officer is leading people is something that you're passionate about. And we were in a place together, and I saw some very interesting adaptations to leadership. What do you think? Do you think that your time has changed what you thought of as leadership into what you think of as leadership now? And maybe not your style so much, but what you find to be the important, kind of the critical things in leading an organization or people?
Yeah, great question. I think if we think about leadership as synonymous with influence, I go back to how did I lead in my household as a punk kid, right? I was the one that would stand at the door on Sunday, 15 minutes before church was going to start and be yelling at everybody else in the house. If we don't leave now, we're going to be late.
So
right?
Perfectly in the Air Force. Yes. Perfectly. Yes.
Reasons why I think my parents probably weren't concerned about me joining the military. Why? Because it was at the time important to me. We have to be on time. We have to show up. It's the respectful thing to do. And I'll be honest with you, it's not like we were late to anything. We weren't. But because we weren't late to anything and I saw people get rewarded for that, then it was like, well, this is my role if I'm early to remind everybody, right? I was basically calling minutes before we had to go somewhere. Well, fast forward that into high school, leadership for me looked like bringing people together from diverse different groups. And I was that person in high school that had friends in all these different pockets. Like these are my musical friends because I was into choir, and these are my nerdy friends because we love to study and we're in all the AP classes, and these are my athlete friends. And I was not the only person that bridged all these gaps. But it was there. And I went to a high school that was very diverse. Like we had kids that had two working parents and, we were kind of working class. And then we had kids who had a lot of parents who had a lot of money and were, doctors and lawyers and bankers. And then we had kids who grew up on farms and had to milk cows and care for all the animals. All of these societal elements met in our high school, which was awesome. And so you got to see the differences in life that exist and the different dynamics. And you got to be around all these amazing adults that had different paths. And so what I enjoyed about being a leader as a young leader was this ability to connect people and bring them together and see the value in my experiences, their ideas, because we had different backgrounds, right? And then on a basketball team, that was the capacity to go, how do we come together and accomplish what the coach wants us to accomplish and learn along the way and support each other. And, athletics was a major part of my journey. Senior year, I was team captain of my basketball team, and it was the first losing season in any sport I'd ever had in my entire life, Jake. And I remember a time sitting there as a senior being like, oh my gosh, I'm in charge of a ship that's taking on water, right? And I hadn't had that modeled a lot as a leader and as I was growing up. But it was such a formative life experience for me, and like recognizing and realizing that whether we win or lost, I was passionate about making sure that we all grew, we all got better, and most importantly, we loved being around each other. Like it was just a positive space. And that just resonated with me. And so I remember after I got to college, I asked the coach that recruited me, because she came out on my recruiting trip and I actually had sprained my ankle. So I couldn't play. So she sat in the stands and in all essence judged how effective I was on the bench.
Ooh.
Right? And I remember sitting down with my head coach after I got to college and go, I'm curious, like, what did you see in me that made you want to recruit me? And she said, well, admittedly, Kylene, you had good grades. And that's a major barrier to us, because I don't want to have to bring on another athlete that I'm not sure can pass college. But they were like, from there, it was your ability to connect with everybody on your team and be the cheerleader that when you need to be the cheerleader, and be the one that kicked them in the butt and be the one that coached them when they need to do that. And I knew that you would fit in on our squad. And that really resonated with me. I don't know that I deliberately set out to do those things, but getting reinforcement from my coach that was something that she valued really drove that into, okay, well, maybe this is my value to the team. And this is how I can contribute and what that can look like. And then obviously you get to practice at the leadership lab that is the Air Force Academy, and all that dovetails in. But I still feel like it's peer leadership. It's still plus or minus 1 year yourself, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's very different when you get out into the military. And so I can study leadership and read all these books and go to all this training when I'm in college. But at the end of the day, you show up and you go, huh. All right, well, I'm the same age as all the A1Cs and senior airmen. I make way more money than they do. I get to mess up all the time and I don't get the same punishment. Right? Mm-hmm. Professionally mess up, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm with you.
Brief the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different than missing something on a pre-flight or not properly doing something in the equipment forms. And I think it made me start to realize, like, leadership in the Air Force it has to be a little different. And what does that look like? And how does that get defined? And for me, what it started to look like was, it's your job to stay connected with the human experience that your airmen are having. And through that, be able to leverage resources that will help them have a better experience. And at the end of all of that, inherently, is more sorties, mission accomplishment, promotion rates, retention. But for me, it always started with, I know I have the capacity to influence the humans. I don't always have the capacity to influence the supply chain. But if I can help influence and support and connect with the humans, well, we can ask for the right things. We can get the policy changed. We can fight for the waivers. We can go out and get the money. And I feel like that became that priority early on in my career. And then as I was lucky enough to move up and become a leader of other officers, then I got that other kind of branch of, okay, how do I give them developmental experiences that I would have wanted? And how can I give them authority earlier? And how can we start to build strong officer and enlisted teams? What does that look like? And how can I model that, right? Because you're a leadership team. I mean, Jake, the first time I ever sat in an office by myself was when I was a squadron commander.
Valid. Very valid. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I didn't ever not have a wing person, somebody to read over my shoulder on the email, somebody to put their hand on my shoulder when I was getting a little animated on the phone, right? Somebody that could look at me in the morning and go, I think maybe you might not be your best version of yourself today. So let's take that into consideration when we're deciding who we're going to go talk to, right?
Right.
And so from there, I think I really started to look at leadership like a team, and recognizing and realizing that I have strengths, but I also have blind spots, and I have things that I can do, but they're not as advanced of a skill set as I wish they were. And so surrounding myself and trusting others in my leadership team to bring those things up and to kind of hold me accountable and teach me things along the way. And I think that became the part where I don't know, when people invest in you, you invest in them. That happens naturally. And then when you have that skin in the game, it's just leadership feels different. And it starts to be why you do what you do.
It feels more like leadership than direction.
Yeah. One of the things that you and I talked about a little bit before, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, is that there's a difference between leading in a way that drives compliance and leading in a way that drives commitment.
Absolutely.
In the military, there is a lot of things to comply with, right? Policy is policy, but it's going to ebb and flow and change. Policy isn't what keeps people around. It's helpful, right? We need to follow that tech data. I was super thankful that we had an AFI that told me what I was supposed to do as a squadron commander, right? But at the end of the day, people are way more important than policy, and people will last through all those policy changes and evolutions. And so it really started to resonate with me on it's really the relationships and the culture that we create and the capacity to reward the right things and hold people accountable when we need to that starts to drive past that initial compliance to a level of commitment. And that trust that's inherent there and like, okay, ma'am, I don't really know why you're asking me to do this, but you've never done me wrong before. And so I'm going to move out because it's not illegal and ethical and moral, knowing that you'll tell me when you can tell me. And when we could get to that place in units, that's when you were like, we're there. We've arrived. And that I just really enjoyed. And obviously that's a far evolution from that. I'm responsible for making sure my family gets to church. I'm responsible for making sure that my cadet squadron is where they're supposed to be and we march well in formation, right? To that sort of next level effective transitioning evolution piece. I mean, in that process, I had to constantly be jockeying the throttles on what I was doing. Did this leadership team, did that leadership team need more or less from me? Did they need more coaching or more mentoring? Did they need more training? Did I need to bring a skill set that this particular team didn't have for some reason and bring somebody in to teach that or offer that? And so that to me, honestly, that dynamic nature of all of it, that's my love language. I like that, like every day is not the same.
Yes.
Piece.
Yes. But I thought you were so attracted to every day is the same.
Well, see, funny, right? That evolution became, I don't care what we do in the workday. I just would like it to start at 6 a.m. and end at 6 p.m. every day.
Valid. Very, very valid. Very, very valid.
Because I know now, and I can only imagine, I would not have been a good person who could shift my sleep schedule every 3, 5, 10 days. That's just not. Admittedly, I studied human factors in college, right? So that's part of it, is I would look at it and go, no, we can't make this person go from swings to days and then back to swings and then on to 12s in a 10-day period. No. Well, why not? Well, I have this study that I looked at in college that says that if you are sleep deprived, you're drunk. Oh, okay. Well, no wonder we're having more failures and issues and quality, escapes and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think I learned what I thought in my small brain was I want to do the same thing every day. It wasn't really I want to do the same thing every day. But there was consistency in the inconsistency, right?
Which brings up a great point in I don't know if this is a question or validation for an idea. What I've often believed is when you create a culture or you create what you were just talking about, synergy in an organization where everything's working, it's not that there's a policy. It's not that we're treating everyone in the same way. You're interacting with people and interacting with them at where they are, how they are, and you're communicating with those people to bring everybody together. And there's not a formula to it outside of you have to open your mouth and communicate.
Yes.
With people. Yeah. There's not if you say 5 words, it equals their commitment. Never found that to be true anywhere.
I concur with you completely. I think it all starts with communication. And it's not to say that everybody has to be extroverted and super well-spoken. And charismatic and outgoing. That is not the case, right? I think you have the ability to be an awesome communicator regardless of what your personality type is. It comes with owning from an authentic perspective, like these are my strengths and this is what I bring to the fight when I'm trying to build a connection with you. And then caring enough about who you are and what's important to you to adapt my style to meet that. Not 100%. More often than not, we met in the middle in that adaptation in those relationships. But my hypothesis, Jake, is that communication is the pathway to connection. It has to happen. And that communication in today's day and age happens in email, on text message, and in person, whether it's, digital Zoom calls or, in person, like actually being able to physically touch each other, see each other. It still all starts with communication. And so knowing that investment in that and why it's important and challenging yourself to just check in and going, is this working? Is this effective? Is it meeting your needs? Is it meeting my needs? I need more. I need less. I need longer. I need more concise, right? All of those things I think are really important. And then from there, we start to build connection because people go, wow, you care enough about me to try and communicate in a way that's effective. Mm-hmm. And then in turn, they communicate back with me in a way that's effective that makes me want to continue to feed that relationship, right? And then once we get to that place where those connections are happening, then we can know each other well enough to know how each of us plugs into the climate. And some of us are going to be the cheerleader, and some of us are going to be the process person, and some of us are going to be the one that's super dynamic and willing to roll with the punches. But everybody's got their place in that. And then we get a chance to go, oh, this is where you fit. This is where I fit. We need more of this. Who has this? Can they dial that up? And then you start to see people for what their strengths and superpowers are, not what their shortcomings are. And then there's trust in that. And then inherently people go, boy, I like it here. I enjoy being here. I see valued. Maybe they'll let me learn something new. Cool. Yes, I got to learn something new. Right? And I think we all go in and out of a bunch of different relationships and environments. And you talk about your and my first assignment at Ramps Time. There were pockets of goodness in that organization, and there were pockets of less goodness in that organization.
That's
challenging
a good way to put
environments, right? But we learned from all of them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I'm kind of an 85% data is good enough when I'm making decisions person. And so I sort of feel the same way about environments. It's never going to be perfect. So, right, from an athlete perspective, I can't remember. I was probably maybe 12 or 13 when I woke up in the morning and I'm like, guess what? Nothing hurts. Something always hurt. So it was a matter of going, okay, yeah, my ankles are a little sore. Yeah, my lower back's a little sore. Ooh, man, my shoulder's talking to me. Whatever. Everything else feels good. So we're going to move out. And I think I took that mentality into the workplace of it's never going to be ideal. You're never going to have all the things. You're never going to have all the people. You're never going to have, but what you have is the capacity to work together and make everybody want to be there. We can control that.
That brings up a really good point in which I think that to take your 85% analogy, I think there's a lot of places that concentrated on the bottom 5 to 10%, made all the decisions there. And that's all they saw of the organization because you were constantly dealing with those people that might not fit in, that maybe didn't get the right mentorship, didn't get what they needed. But that's where you spent all your time focusing, and you viewed the whole organization that way, as opposed to this is the bottom half. Let me see what show me the top half. Somebody show me good stuff and show me what's in between. And I felt like in organizations where you dwelt on the bottom half, you pulled that 80% in the middle, you pulled people down to that, and you made it miserable for other people because you just were surrounded by or dealing with those people that had bad times.
Yeah, what resonates with me is I think multiple times in our career, you and I both saw this value of we needed to step back and take in the context. And so for one quality escape, there were 1,000 done right. Mm-hmm. For one airmen that did something that they weren't supposed to, there for us literally were 1,000 who did what they were supposed to, right? And you start to look at it, and I used to joke with my senior NCOs sometimes, y'all, we wear a badge and are part of a career field that for all intents and purposes exists to fix things that are broken.
Yes, very true. Very true.
and to proactively try and stop things from breaking. Why aren't we looking at people and processes the same way? Like, don't get emotionally attached to something happened. Something happened. Where did it come from? Let's check in. How do we prevent it from happening again? You know, you and I have talked about, like, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, sometimes people are going to show you who they are. Sometimes it's going to be an environment or a situation that's negative. And so there were a lot of times in leadership, especially once I got kind of towards the top and I had the ability to sort of influence decisions we made when things went wrong, where I'd kind of just pause and go, is this systematic? Or do we think that this is a one-off? Because, like, I could tell you how I've messed up in the last 30 days. It doesn't get broadcast to everybody in the group. So if it's illegal, different story.
Yes.
But if it's an application error, there's so many human factors involved. There's so many other people involved in the dynamic. Like, if this person is truly not going to be fit for service and part of our team, they'll show us that again. It'll come up again. But if our expectation is that everybody gets through this all of the way and never makes a mistake along the way, we're never going to get any better. We're never going to try anything else. We're never going to learn things. Like, that's not the purpose behind it. So again, back to this, like, let's not lose sight of the fact that we all are in a career field that expects things to need maintenance. Let's do maintenance.
Very accurate. Very, very accurate. So take me through the decision to retire.
Yeah. My husband had retired 4 years before me, and I got to watch kind of his journey and what that looked like. And I'm a planner and proactive in that space. And so I was a lieutenant colonel, and I was in my last of my 4 years of squadron command. And I knew I had at least one more assignment until I was retirement eligible. And I went, I'm going to go to senior TAP because I've planned for everything else in my life. Why wouldn't I plan for this? We only teach it once a year. And so I reached out to my boss and I was like, boss, by the time it was getting ready to show up, I knew that I was headed to Afghanistan for a year to be a deputy. And I was like, I'm going to be in Afghanistan. I'm going to be away from my family. I'm going to have way fewer life responsibilities than I have when I'm home and I have everything else going on. I'm interested in going to this class and seeing what I can do in my free time and my evenings to just help me prepare for what that transition is going to look like. Best way for me to do that is to go to TAP. And so I got to go to senior TAP. Well, of course, you're in there with mostly E8s, E9s, lieutenant colonels, colonels. So it's kind of an old crew, right? And that's fun for me. I'm a dreamer and schemer. So I was in there with a couple of friends and just being able to be a part of that dialogue and discussion and to know what was out there. And they started challenging you and thinking about, what do you think you might want to do? And what does this look like? And what do you enjoy? So it was just a good sort of mental escape for a couple of days to go start to think about what could be next. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't put a lot of thought into that. Mm-hmm. Like, by the time you get over the 10-year hump, you're pretty much like, as long as I can stay medically ready, I'm going to stay to 20 because pension is too sweet of a deal to pass up. And when you're loving it, on top of it, you love your job, you love the people you work with, you definitely aren't going to walk away from that, right? So that's where it started. And in that process, we went through some neat exercises in what do you enjoy? What are the things you think you're good at? Sometimes those two labels don't apply to the same activity, right? Like, I'm good at decorations and writing performance reports, but I don't enjoy doing it except for, like, I have to attach it to the person and how much I care about the person to be able to do it, right?
Yep.
So it's like, I knew when I grew up I didn't want to be a copy editor, right? So that kind of got the juices flowing and thinking about what that would be. Well, then I went on my trip to Afghanistan. We were there towards the tail end of time at Bagram. There was a lot going on. I had an interesting group of like lieutenant colonels that I kind of ran around with and hung with, everything from the chaplain to the other deputies to the squadron commanders. And we were all kind of in a similar place in life. So we had some pretty, I think, in-depth, like deep conversations about what that looked like. And in that time away, my kids were 11 and 6-ish. And it was hard. It was hard for me to be away from them, and it was challenging for my husband to run the household by himself, right? He did an amazing job. But there was a lot, there's a lot of emotional management in that age range for our kids and what's going on in those transitions they're going through. In the military, you don't live around family necessarily. So I'm so thankful that we had the world's greatest neighbors and everybody really poured deeply into us. But you start to get that vibe from your kids where like they can legitimately look you in the eye and be like, we missed you. Like my 11-year-old gave me I can't talk to you all the time. It's too hard. Like, I'm willing to talk to you on Saturday mornings so that as soon as we get off the phone, I can go play with my friends. It's like, okay. Got it.
Mature response.
Right? Like, and having to check in and realize I need to do what works for him, not works for me in that process. So those things were kind of going on in the background as well. And then I have aging parents. So my parents had some health issues while I was downrange, and it's always harder when you're apart and you can't be there and you're trying to connect over the phone and text, and but it's not the same. And it started kind of like driving home to me this idea of maybe seeing my parents every 2 years isn't enough. And especially when my husband and I were both in the military, like it was very hard for us to align our professional schedules to be able to go see family. And so I think all of those things kind of layered on top of each other, and that desire to spend some more time and be more present with my family as they were growing, be able to be more present with my aging parents, and what that looked like. And then from a professional perspective, like my heart just kept feeling tugged like I was destined to go do more, Jake. I read an analogy the other day that fits so perfect. And as somebody who's 6 feet tall with 6'3" wingspan, like this resonated with me. My jacket just felt a little small. Like it kept the water off, provided me warmth, but 2 inches of my wrists were hanging out, or, it didn't cover my butt the way I wanted it to. Right. And I took some time to like really own and reflect on, okay, well, what is that? And I just feel like God just kept telling me, like, Kylene, you have the ability to impact and influence more people than you're currently impacting and influencing. Like, you have gifts that right now aren't being utilized and aren't being shared. So I returned from my deployment. It actually ended earlier than expected because of everything kind of throttling down and what happened in Bagram, and was so blessed to walk right back into a job at DM, because kind of the drug deal I worked with my 06 when I left to go to Afghanistan is, hey, I would like decision authority. So are you willing to bring me back as a deputy for 1 year on the back end of my deployment? And it gets me to 20 to where I have decision authority to decide what do I want to do next. And it provides stability for my family, and that they don't have to leave their group of friends. They don't have to leave their home. We can stay here. And my boss was amazing and was totally willing to support that and make that happen. And then I was so blessed that boss was replaced by another amazing human being. Right. So I returned from Bagram with admittedly some leadership trauma and experiences and things that happened, and was able to just be really real with this senior leader that I had never previously met or crossed paths with. I mean, we had shaken hands once, I think. And he was just like the leader that I needed at the time. And I kind of woke up one morning and I went, I think it's time I need to retire. And I think this is a leader that when I tell him that, is going to get that doesn't mean I want to stop doing anything that I'm doing, because I love my job. And I have so many things that I wanted to be a part of before I left the service. So we were in the middle of COVID, right? I got home. I literally beat COVID home. I landed on Tuesday at home, and we shut down the nation for COVID on Thursday.
Wow.
So now my kids are in, homeschool. I'm the only one that's really leaving the neighborhood cul-de-sac and going to work periodically. Everybody else is hunkered down in our little special bubble, right? All of that is going on. And there was so much to lead through in that time. We were still deploying. We were returning from deployment. We were training new pilots. We were dealing with aging fleet issues. We were reorganizing and taking on a unit at Nellis and bringing that in. And at the same time, I had just gotten all this experience in command and all this experience downrange, and I have always been, but it had like reinforced this desire that I had to just lean in on human performance and how we have to lean in on optimizing that if we want to be able to do what we wanted to do in the DoD. And so in addition to telling this boss I wanted to retire, I was like, and I want to do some major human optimization stuff. I think I have a research team and a coworker of mine on the med group side of the house that we can roll in, and we want to lead the charge on that. Would you be willing to fund that? Just so you know, in case nobody's told you, I like to do a bunch of stuff over at ANFRC. So I like to do panels, and I like to teach the flight commander's course, and I like to do this, and I do all, like, my work never gets degraded, but these are things that fill my cup and allow me to do the things I enjoy less. Will you let me to continue to do that stuff? And he was like, yeah, all the things, Kylene. Like, yes, because I want you to be set up for success, and I know you still want to be bought in here, and I know you really want to help be an awesome liaison for all of our squadron commanders, and we're leading through challenging times. So I was reinforced in that decision of, once I made the decision to retire, I never regretted it. I never paused. And I know that a major part of that was the awesome people I had around me. And that, the boss that didn't just go, okay, and send me out to pasture, right? Or the chief that didn't just stop coming in and visiting or going out to lunch with me so we could chat, And so I think that retirement decision came pretty early, and then I had quite a bit of time to live with it and deciding what I'm going to do. And as I did, like all things, once you decide what you're going to set your mind to, you start to see the glimmers of where that's at. And so that reinforcement piece of going and teaching and having people say, this was really helpful, this was really useful, man, I wish I would have had this earlier, longer. And I didn't know at the time that was part of what I was going to do in my second career. But it just fed that narrative that I had created of, I have something to offer in places other than just inside the maintenance group. And what could that look like? And being able to work on research that unpacked opportunities and resulted in building these amazing consolidated human performance centers that exist at places now like DM and Hill, being able to be a part of all of that and get that research going and be the primary liaison that moved those things down the path, not only in service, but then right after I retired. Amazing things. And so I think all those things kind of combined led to my ultimate decision, and then smooth flowed that from decision to actual DD-214. Right? That period of time,
yes,
that I think can be challenging, and the unknown didn't feel as challenging to me because it just felt really supported and creative and useful in that period of time.
What was your concern? So after you made the decision, what concerns did you have about the difference between in and out?
Yeah, I'll be frank with you. The number one thing in my mind was finding a new home for our family, a community that was going to be a good fit, and then integrating ourselves into that environment in the middle of COVID, right? So deciding where we were going to move, deciding if it, the size of the community, the schools, were our kids' schools going to be in session? Were they going to have academic opportunities? Military kids go from the best school in the nations to the lower end of the school in the nations, the huge classrooms, the super small classrooms, the dedicated teachers with 30 years of experience, the brand new ones, right? And so it was really important to try and provide our kids a great academic environment, and also a community that we thought would be receptive to them, as somebody who hadn't grown up there and lived there all along, right? Now, it helps that I'm from Montana. We moved to Montana, so we could still do that. My parents are from here, and we live in a state that there are so many veterans, Jake. And so almost everybody has somebody in their family, knows somebody, right? It's your dad, it's your brother, it's your aunt, it's your sister, it's your boyfriend, it's your, right? So the idea of us being a military family that retired and left and moved to a community isn't foreign here. So I also think that really helped. What are the chances the year that I was deployed to Afghanistan, right? One kid's teacher was a military spouse and another one was a military bride, right? What? Talk about helping smooth flow the fact that my mom's deployed, right? And so knowing that and wanting to create that environment where teachers will look at our kids and go, hey, here's kids that have seen some life and have been in a lot of classrooms and have been a lot of a place. So that's settling. We ended up having to build a home. So everything associated with like picking out all the things and building the home. And then I'll be honest with you, because my husband was in the military too, like all of our healthcare came from the military. And so that, like, for the first time in our life, having to get really smart about like, what's the right answer and how do we set up healthcare? And like, I had a kid that needed braces. What's the right dental plan that's going to give us the right coverage that's going to allow us to get braces as soon as possible? Like, real talk, those things probably were what took up 80% of capacity for me. Admittedly, because my husband already had a pension and I was getting a pension. So we had a living wage between our two pensions that we could focus on, settle the family, then figure out what you're going to do. Now, I realize that's not everybody's experience. For some people, that finding the job first then dictates where you go, where you move, what that looks like. Being close to family, being able to be in a culture and a community that we wanted to be in, those were our priorities, and we were blessed enough to have the flexibility to kind of focus in on those things. But it was an adventure.
Was healthcare really the biggest challenge, or was there a challenge that you didn't see coming? What was the biggest challenge in that transition for you?
Healthcare was a challenge. I did not do any of my disability stuff until I got out and we got here.
That's challenging.
I wouldn't have changed anything about that. That was still the right decision for me. But it took months. And so from a healthcare perspective, it was probably squaring away my own healthcare that was most challenging. It was easier to do it for everyone else. My husband was able to kind of smooth flow right into the VA because he was already being cared for by the VA in Arizona. So he just had to transfer from Arizona to Montana. After lots of hours of researching orthodontists, right? Like we got that kind of squared away. But for me, it was like getting through those things, getting in the VA system, learning care in the community. And then I'll be frank, like my body going, oh, we're done. Okay, now it's not all going to fall off, but everything that's been like riding below at the cellular level is all going to come out. And so for me, physically, it was I need to kick my ibuprofen addiction to be able to get through the day, and I need to figure out how to sleep again when I'm not on call 24/7 and literally my phone rings every night. I mentally need to unpack some of the stuff that I just keep bottling up because there wasn't time for it. And, it was starting to seep out the corners and the edges a little bit. And then just starting to figure out like broadly what was happening in life for me. So I would say like I went through a lot of physical transitions and challenges as I got into like treatment teams that actually wanted to care for me in the long term and work together, and then balancing those like on and off base providers. Like all of that, quite frankly, was a part-time job. And there were multiple times in that process where I was like, if I was working 40 hours a week, I would not be able to do this to the level that I'm doing this. And that means that part of the transition wouldn't have taken me 6 to 8 months. It probably would have potentially taken me years. What was your experience in that space? I mean, obviously physical ailments, we all leave with them.
I got really, so the only part about COVID, which was lucky for me, is I got my shoulder done, which was my biggest nagging thing in 2019, retired in 2020. I went to see one VA person, got all my ratings, got everything done. And I would say that's the easiest part, but I've been back since. And like, I got a knee that when I went and got it, talked to the ortho goes, you're too young for a new knee, but you need one. And I'm like, wait, what is the treatment in between those two things? Nothing. Don't be too hard on it. I'm like, wait, what? Huh? That doesn't make any sense at all. So my own health, admittedly, I probably have not taken as good a care as I should. Mental health, I've taken much better care of, which is probably going to pay more long-term dividends. Yeah.
Yeah. So my aha moment, I went in for my first, I get into the VA system because I get my disability rating. I go in for my first meeting with my primary care manager. And it's a big one, right? Because they don't have anything about me in their records. And so they're asking all the questions and they're doing things. That we get to the tail end of this like interview, if you will, this dialogue. And my provider looks at me and she goes, I can't let you leave the building without talking to a mental health professional. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah. Like, yeah. I was like, okay. So I sit there for like 30 minutes and I wait. She comes in. We have a great dialogue. She's like, Kylene, I'm concerned about the fact that within 30 days of me retiring, my husband shattered his collarbone. My youngest broke his arm. So I went from being like having this amazing husband that took care of so many things while I was trying to go to work and be in the military to all of a sudden like half my family was missing a limb for all intents and purposes. Like I went from making 2 meals a week to having to make more meals a week, right? All these things that it was just a very quick like 0 to 60 that was sort of driven by some injuries that happened in our household. We're not sleeping well. We're living in a 2-bedroom apartment. You know, my preteen and young elementary school, they're sharing a queen size bed. We're building a house. Like there's just all of this chaos. And she's like, I'm a little concerned about the stress in your life. I'm like, this is nothing compared to what I experienced in the military. She's like, but it's different, Kylene. And I was like, you're right, it is. And it was so helpful, but it was that like, it was an early gut check for me I needed on, you're probably not mentally okay. And that's okay, but let's figure that out now before something negative happens. And so the true challenge, I use that as my dovetail story into like my true biggest challenge that I took for granted and didn't predict was the mental decoupling and recoupling that had to occur in that transition from being in the military and not being in the military. And that, do we have time for me to kind of tease that out a little bit?
Absolutely. I have all the time you need.
So let's start with like basic things, right? I was so efficient in running and orchestrating my life and everyone around them in the military, quite frankly, to be able to do what I did, that I was the worst at giving myself grace when something didn't happen. Like,
I have that internal voice.
Yeah. My limiting belief that I'm constantly trying to turn off is that I can't make mistakes, right? So what did this look like? I would plan my errand days. I would take 1 day a month off from work if I could. We would get, the 2-ish or so. And I would always take the 1 and it would be my errand day and I would get my hair cut and I would get all these other things done that I didn't have time to do any other time of life. For years, I would plan my errands based upon like, well, I'm not taking left turns because that takes extra time. And if I needed something at the grocery store, like I would call as I was driving from a meeting to another meeting to make sure that they had it on the shelves because I did not have time to go to the store and have them not have it and have to go to another store, right? It was that regimented to be able to just get through the day, get through life, do everything for myself, my family, my unit, my organization, right? That need disappeared. And then like realizing I have time. What does that time look like? And I would find myself getting frustrated. Like, I had to go to 2 grocery stores today. I'm losing my edge. Holy cow. You live in a new city. You get to go like figure out which grocery stores have what you want them to have now, right? Maybe one has a bakery item you like. Who knows, right? But that's where that mental like click would go to. The other one is just this like desire and capacity. And I feel like I was raised in the military to always look for problems to solve, 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 look for goodness to reinforce, look for goodness to reinforce, right? Well, the look for goodness to reinforce feels really good. That translates well to the military and then into the private sector. But look for problems to solve. I don't have to pull back to the grocery store now. I don't have to pull into the grocery store and do an analysis on why I think their parking's laid out incorrectly and ineffective, right? I don't have to show up to open house for my kids and go, oh, if you guys would have flowed this left to right instead of right to left and then given people this and then sent this out in email, would have been way more efficient. People would have walked in the same direction. It would not helpful and not my problem to solve, right? And so I did a good job of like not saying the things I was thinking, but it didn't stop me from thinking them, right? And that capacity to go, this isn't your base, this isn't your unit. It is your community. It totally is your community. And so eventually you will figure out how to plug in and inject and contribute and help. But you are not walking in here as a proven entity with rank and credibility and a bio that everybody can read and like known designated skill sets that everybody knows you have. So your ideas on making things better, there's a whole lot of relationship building that needs to happen behind all of that before any of that's going to be appreciated, right?
I think that's a very common difficulty in that we miss the uniform, but I think we also miss the structure and rank because you look at somebody and know that person's credible. I don't have to have a whole conversation with you. I don't have to get to know you for a long period of time. I know that you're credible in your area of expertise, which I can tell by what's on your uniform. You're credible in that area. And by the same token, you then have that credibility, right? If you walk into a room and you have a certain level of credibility just starting and not having that as a person anymore. Well, having it, but it's built over time, We change we don't have to wear the same uniform anymore. You can wear a different shirt today. That doesn't mean that you're credible, right? So finding out the relationship building that draws out that credibility again is very difficult and time consuming, which we're not used to. It's not efficient. It's not effective.
Back to my efficiency thing, right? And I think some of it is like challenging yourself to seek out people that are differently than you too. So I roll up to that same open house. I'm watching this lady at a table. She's representing a local care office in the community. She just has the most amazing aura, Jake. Like I'm just watching her engage with people and how she's doing it, and I'm super impressed. I'm like, oh man. So there's a moment pause. I walk over to her and I introduce myself and said, hey, I just need you to know I've been watching you for the last couple minutes. We've been going back and forth. I'm super impressed with your aura. And this is what I observed about how people receive you. And she just starts laughing and she looks at me and she goes, are you military? I totally am. And she says, me too, retired Marine. I was like, oh, okay, Kylene. So what you have to remind yourself is you're going to continue to be attracted to people that are like you and act like you. And in the military, we used to joke about like how easy it is to give a halo to people that do things the exact same way you do. And you have to challenge yourself to like look past that and see all the awesome other, skills and talents that are out there. And so that was an awesome like wake up moment of like, I need to work harder and how I'm going to connect with people.
It's amazing that no matter the service in general is so diverse, but you can watch somebody or have a conversation and go, oh man, that person's really got it going on. And you talk to them for a minute and you're like, oh, okay. Yep. We're the same. We're the same.
Yeah.
Which is it's not a bad thing. You just have to be very, to your point, very cognizant that sometimes you might want to seek out other people.
So adjacent to that challenge, that mental challenge of like all those things that you're going through and the decoupling. And I will be honest with you, like it probably took me,
if you say you're done, I'd be surprised.
8 months before I stopped feeling like phantom vibrations from a work phone that didn't exist. Before I stopped waking up on Saturday morning going, did I miss something? Because I've never slept through a Friday night, right? Between myself and my husband being a maintenance officer, like it didn't happen. And so months of like decoupling what that looks like and like years to accidentally leave my phone at home and not care about the fact that I left my phone at home. Years. Because you just spend so much time being on call, right? Like I remember getting my butt chewed because I didn't answer my phone because I was swimming laps. And the response I got from my boss in the military was like, sounds to me like you need to put your phone in a plastic baggie next to the pool and check it when you're drinking water. And I was like, okay.
Noted.
There's just a lot of like untraining that has to occur from that time and space. What I didn't realize and I took for granted is the support network for emotional and mental things that I had ever present in my life that went away. So as real talk, as somebody that was a squadron commander for 4 years and then a deputy for 2 years, the chaplain checked on me every week, Jake. Every week I had a counseling appointment with my chaplain. Sometimes scheduled, sometimes not, but they were ever present in my life And I didn't give probably enough credit at the time on how valuable of a relationship that was for me and what I was going to replace it with. In addition, my physical therapist, like the PT, retired civilian guy that worked in the local PT shop, he was my therapist too. Like, I would go see him twice a week. The only time I could ever go was during his lunch period. Nobody else would be in the training room at our gargantuan base but me and him, and he'd be working on my neck, my back, trying to make me be functional and asking me about life and letting me tell him what was going on and process what that aspect looked like, right? And then those friend group and neighbors that you have and your work besties that you have that are all going through the same thing.
Yes.
And so when you do that math, like realistically,
it's a village.
5 hours a week, I was in self-care relationships. I didn't honor that or like check in with and recognize that I needed to replace that with something though. And so in that retirement, I was lucky in that one of my work besties retired just a couple weeks before me. And so we were very much on the journey together in different states. And we were super deliberate about checking in with each other. What appointment did you have? Where are you at? What have you learned about the process? Share it, please, right? What are you experiencing right now? What is hard about this news article and seeing, what that looks like? What is changing about the dynamics that are going on? When we, everybody left out of Afghanistan, like that was the first major military thing after I retired that I wasn't a part of, and like wrapping my head around the fact that I no longer contributed to newsworthy things like that. But the friends and the people and the mentees and mentors were still doing that work. And what did that look and feel like? And like watching things burn that I had been around months prior. Right? And so going through those things with a friend and then leaning on, mental health support professionals and a new group of friends and that took time to build. And honestly, one of my 3 best friends when I first moved here, in all intents and purposes, and I'm so blessed, they're still my friends, my realtor, who after she sold me my house, I signed the paperwork and I was like, can we be friends now, please, that we're done? And she was like, yeah, of course, right? I'm so thankful for her. She's the most amazing human and just an awesome community connector. And I'm so blessed that, one, she did that for us, and then now we're still friends. My Mary Kay lady, who's just under 20 years my senior, but I literally showed up, and when I thought I was buying some moisturizer and a couple of things, like she connected with me on a human level, and she's now, my partner in crime, and we get to talk about all these awesome leadership things, and we've done all these amazing things, and we're both keynoting this awesome conference and this coming fall, and so she's just been this great person. And then this mother of a person I served with, who lives in the area, and as I was leaving Davis-Monthan, he was like, hey, you need to meet my mom. And I'm really close to my mom, right? My mom lives close here too. But there's a different relationship that I have with her than I do with this other woman who's the same age. But I didn't grow up in her household. And those 3 ladies, like, they fed my soul. They let me talk about my experiences. I could be myself. They had all been out. They had no military affiliation. They were in completely different walks of life and different aspects of the community. And we're just this like awesome squad of people to help make that transition, in addition to all the friends that I had from the military. And over time, I was able to replace that 5-ish hours, right, of self-care, mutually beneficial relationships that I probably took for granted when I was in, that allowed me to do what I did. I had to replace all that.
Have you now plugged it into your calendar on specific days and times so that you have directions associated with?
Yeah, because it feels good that way.
That's good. Good.
Yeah.
So overall, in the transition from active to retired, if you had to put your finger on one, maybe 2 things that you learned, kind of big, huge takeaways, what would you say those are? 1 or 2?
If given the opportunity to build in a break between leaving the service and starting what you do next, do it. Because just like white space allows time for creativity, in between retirement and what you do next, that white space allows you to not only like breed health back into yourself and your relationships, in addition to get creative about what that looks like. And there's some sacrifice involved in that, right? Like you have to make some sound financial decisions in your couple of years leading up to retirement to be in a place where you cannot have money coming in, right? And so maybe it's choosing not to go on a vacation, or being really smart with your investments, or maybe not having that fourth cup of coffee that you didn't make at home for yourself, right? But like, if that's a goal, then taking steps necessary that might set you up for that. If you can do that, I think it's really valuable and important. The second thing that comes to mind for me is start figuring out what you enjoy before you leave the service. And then do more of that. I had no idea that I was going to be doing what I'm doing now when I retired. But now that I look back in hindsight, it all makes sense. Like I would seek opportunities to go over to ANFRC and teach classes and sit on panels and be a part of brainstorming. And I really enjoyed like connecting and building niche learning environments and running mission verification programs at our units that was like part teaching and then part like resource capacity alignment towards mission effectiveness. Like I loved all of those things. And so when given the opportunity or when I saw a need, I would go, hey, I think I have something that my team and I can help with here. And we got those reps. And some of those same classes that I taught in that flight commander or flight, superintendent course, I've adapted and I get to teach in the private sector now. But I didn't know that when I was building it, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the other one is like, if you think there's things you want to get into and be a part of, then lean into that. If you're curious about getting into going and getting your PhD and doing research, well, then spend time with people that have their PhDs and do research, right? See what their life is like, because they don't get paid a lot. So can you get excited about, what that thing is? Do you want to teach? Do you want to be a consultant? Do you want to do something completely different? And then go do that. Find somebody who does that and ask them questions about what their path is. So honestly, it's an experience that mirrors very closely what my teenage son is going through as he's trying to decide what to do after high school. You got to do the same thing. The problem is we're a little lazy and we've been in the military for so long that we go, well, this is what I know how to do.
Yes.
It is. But there's so much else out there. So go see what it is. You never know what it is that's going to get you excited and what that's going to look like. And so start that dialogue early. Tap into spouses, tap into your neighbors, tap into community leaders that do all kinds of different things, your respective chamber of commerce or whatever it may be. There's so much there. And so start having some of that dialogue with people. Even if you don't plan on staying in the local area, it's not as much networking for future growth as it is just the opportunity to tell people's story. And people love to tell their stories because it's therapeutic. And so they get something out of it too. So there's a win there. And then I think the third thing, if I could offer another one, is just like honor and appreciate that it's a very challenging transition. And if you don't take the time to do it, you're going to crash and burn. So you can take off the uniform, you can change your title, you can get a new ID card. Those are all changes. But the emotional and mental transitions that you have to go through in that process, it's a process. It's not an on-off switch. And you're going to do some of it really well, and you're going to struggle with other parts of it. And then you're going to have moments of brilliance, and then you're going to have moments where you're like, wow, that's the dumbest thing I've ever done. I need to tell all my friends to make sure that they don't do it too. And that's okay. It's all part of that journey. And recognizing and realize that it's going to evolve. My brother was medically retired before I was, even though he entered the service after me. And one of the most sage pieces of advice he gave me in the process was, Kylene, you don't have to do your second career for the rest of your life. It doesn't even have to be a career. This phase, it can be a job. It can be something you're passionate about. It can be a side hustle because you like the people or the product. There's no expectation to care about something in the same way that you cared about being in the service. And it was such sage advice that almost gave me permission to just broaden my aperture and go, oh, okay, you're right. It feels different. And that's okay. Now, my husband and I joke about this all the time. I cannot watch a military movie and not want to like wake up the next morning, lace up my boots and go to work. There's not a movie that exists. I don't care if it's about Marines or the Navy or the Air Force. I don't care if it's officer or enlisted. Doesn't matter what it is. Like I watch or read books like that and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go, sign me up. I want that experience. That will never go away. And I've learned to live with that and love and enjoy and appreciate it without feeling like I have to fill it. In the same way that I can't run anymore. I'm too broken. I can't go jog anymore. Mm-hmm. And I had to give that part of my life up because I'm trying to prolong that knee replacement you were talking about.
As long as possible.
But I can do so many other things. And so instead of getting jealous when I see that 40-year-old woman run around my neighborhood, I can look and smile and be like, oh, I'm so excited for her because she's having an awesome experience right now. And then I'm going to go ride my Peloton.
So if you could, would that be the piece of advice that you would give your retiring self? Open your aperture, find what you love? Or is there another piece of advice that now that you're 4 years out, is there another piece of advice that you would give yourself prior to retirement from where you are today?
Yeah, I would say go hard early on your physical and mental health. Go hard early because it's going to feel really chaotic in that first couple of months. But once you get to the point where you have a built treatment team, everybody's working together, everything's aligned, the things that can be fixed have been fixed, the things that just need to be sustained and dealt with are sustained and dealt with. You've hacked your supplements. You know what that looks like. Now I can take that and I get to like put it on the shelf and go, that's not a stressor in my life anymore. It's as normalized as weekly grocery shopping.
Yes. Yeah.
It's as normalized as paying my monthly bills. But you got to go hard early. You got to just like lean in. And in that process, if I could offer like sub advice to that, you need to be real and raw with your medical providers in a way that you have never been real and raw with your medical providers before. And then they're going to ask you questions about things that you didn't even know to think or ask about yourself. And you're going to go, yeah, I do have that. Oh, that does happen to me too. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, that's not, everybody doesn't experience that? Oh, because they're professionals. So your willingness to just be super upfront with everything that's going on with them in all aspects of your life early, again, builds that connection with them, allows them to know what's going on, builds your trust in them because they get to like actually respond to you, remember, contribute to you in a way that's really positive. So that would be the other major significant piece that I would tell previous me. And I'm blessed because my brother had gotten out and my husband had gotten out and I had gotten to witness some of that. So I learned some of that from them and was able to take it to another level.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, ma'am, Kylene, thank you. It still feels funny calling you that. Kylene, thank you. Thank you so much for the time. Again, it never fails. Anytime I have a conversation with you, there's some inspiration. There's some wow factor. So thank you so much for your time today. Any parting shots?
Yeah, just want to say thanks to you, Jake. I know that this is a We Me gift, these podcasts, right? You get things out of them. Obviously, the people that you bring on get a lot out of it as well. And I just want to thank you for leaning into the space. I know it's easy. I know you're doing new things and using new systems, and us old dogs, sometimes that's challenging. But you're doing great work here, and it's going to have an impact, I think, on a lot of people. And most importantly, it feels good, and I can tell it brings you joy. And so I'm proud of you for seeking those things out in your second chapter. So best of luck to you as you continue to blaze new paths.
Doing my best. Thank you again.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.